All right, welcome in here, everybody. As we're finally not getting, torrential downpours up here in the Northeast. Joe, I hope everybody was safe up where you are, and welcome back, man. If you don't remember, Joe did our college football preview a couple weeks ago. Absolutely crushed it. Glad he's back in. So, Joe, how is everything, man?
Oh, always a pleasure, Marco. Yeah, we had some bad weather, I think, early part of the week with tornadoes out here in New Jersey, but it's shaping up to be a great weekend. We'll see how this plays out. And training camp soon, what, less than 14, 15 days away from the Hall of Fame game. We have training camp, and then obviously college and NFL kicks off after Labor Day. There's nothing better than this. The offseason now is starting to wind down, and there's nothing better.
Yeah, so your life is going to be completely chaotic from now until probably, till through January, February, right?
Yeah, I mean, once football kicks off after Labor Day, it's basically, nonstop college and NFL action.
Yeah.
We have games almost every night now, which is amazing when you think about it. Tuesday nights used to be just for the MAC, and now Thursday night, they're talking Wednesday,
hmm
Monday. I mean, it's just incredible. And once we enter that Thanksgiving Day, right? That November month, and we have like what, 60, 70 straight days of NFL and college action. There's nothing better.
Yeah, I'm entering the Circa Survivor competition for my
Good
first
for
year
you.
ever. So yes, so that'll be
Awesome.
Thanksgiving will have a whole new meaning this year of like, only betting those games and saving those teams and now having a rooting interest. So I know Joe and I were both college football guys, but obviously going to get right here into the NFL. So we'll just start kind of with a little division breakdown. I want to go kind of division by division. Some of them obviously we don't need to talk about as much. So we'll just kind of start in the AFC and we'll go with the AFC North here, kind of in my home country here of Baltimore, Maryland. So we have the Ravens as the favorite to win the AFC North, followed by Cincinnati, then Pittsburgh, then Cleveland. Joe, I put in Cincinnati to win the AFC at plus 1350 right after the Sexy Dexy signing there. I think if you look on paper, where's the difference between their roster and Baltimore's roster? Are the Ravens exponentially better that warrants them to be a pretty big odds-on favorite over Cincinnati? Your thoughts on that division?
No, I agree with you. I mean, the problem with Cincinnati has just been basically one, can they stay healthy? And then two, they're their own worst enemy. I think when you look at Joe Burrow, you look at Jamar Chase, that combo when they're healthy could outscore any team on their schedule. That's been never an issue. It's right. It's either they start out 0-2 or they're healthy and then all of a sudden the defense becomes a complete sieve like they were 2 years ago and even last year when we just talk about the lack of consistency with the rushing attack with Chase Brown. The offensive line broke down, and then you see glimpses, but we don't see the consistency from week to week to week. But I'll say this about Baltimore. I think a lot of people think that Baltimore, just on paper, because of Lamar, because of Derrick Henry, even though Harbaugh now is with the Giants, that this is hands down the best team and a legit AFC contender for a championship. And defensively, they are weak. We've seen them exposed. It started last year, Marco, in the loss at home to Detroit.
Oh
Their
yeah.
defense is not good. They got exposed. So unless Lamar is going to be on or Derrick Henry's going to take the game over with 45 rushes and they're wearing down teams, they are suspect in almost any game against a formidable offense. So if we're talking value and we're talking, hey, the front runner is Baltimore, and they're there every year with Lamar as a top 5 pick for the Heisman. I'm thinking college MVP. I like Burrow. Again, now I will say this, though. I'm with you, but the one I want to say negative is Zach Taylor. I mean, how he's kept
Yep.
this job as long as he has, it's incredible. He got them to a Super Bowl, but how much of that is Joe Burrow and Chase and Higgins, and how much of that is actually Zach Taylor? That is the one concern, and I think negative, that this team doesn't live up to expectations this year. He needs to be gone. But that being said, I like the pick of Cincinnati to potentially win the North.
Yeah, to touch on your point a little bit, and well, just a couple, I'll go quick. But I heard a stat with Cincinnati that kind of really boggled my mind. It was something like when Cincinnati's defense gives up 25 points or less and Joe Burrow starts the game, they're 37-10 in his career. Like imagine that win
Incredible.
percentage. So yeah, so
Right.
now you have a defense that on paper should be a lot better. That defensive line, you got to think they're going to give up 24, 23 points a game. If they do that, the track record tells you they win games. So, and you're spot on about the Ravens, and I'm on the Ravens under 11 and a half. Like, I don't see what the first year head coach, first year offensive coordinator, new defensive tackle. Joe, I think this team's a little soft here. They always choke in big games. Now, maybe that was a hardball issue. People say it is. I say it's not. It's on the players, and it feels like a Derrick Henry. I don't wish injury on anybody, but it feels like there's a regression coming. I know he is a freak of nature, right?
Mhm.
But it's bound to happen sometime. And if he's not rushing for 1,500, 1,600 kind of yards like that, then that exposes Lamar even more, who did decline last year. So I think it's Cincinnati's division to lose, with a kind of a wild card being the Pittsburgh Steelers, just given that offense. But I don't think their defense can compete. I think Pittsburgh will do what they usually do, but maybe they're a year or two away after Rodgers is gone. But I think it's a two-horse race right there, and I will lean towards Cincinnati as well, with the Ravens win total under of 11.5. So
Yeah,
that
I'm with you with the Ravens. I'll just say this: they get Hendrickson, right? So now all this expectation back to a dominant defense. But again, pure number one wide receiver, they've struggled. And I've been the biggest supporter of Lamar when he came out of college at Louisville. I actually thought he should have been a first round draft pick, right? Meaning like that top 32, he gets taken 32nd overall. I thought he was better than Baker Mayfield for upside. He's proved that with 2 MVPs. The problem is that this team identity wise, yeah, they utilize Derrick Henry, but then if teams are stacking the box and shutting down the run, is it Zay Flowers? Is it who is it on that team that you say, hey, this guy is like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson each and every week with the game on the line or in a tight spot? I can count on that guy. That is the problem, and that's why Lamar struggled. And people don't want to call it out because they're afraid, they hate to go against the grain, or it's going against common perception. But let's call it what it is. We've given Harbaugh so much credit, and the guy hasn't won a Super Bowl in how many years now?
Right. Yeah. Since 2012, 2013.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Like that season. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I think maybe the most interesting division in here, and I was always it's Mahomes till you beat him, Mahomes till you beat him, is the AFC West. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes booked that for comeback player of the year. It's plus money right now. Go run to put that in, because that is absolutely happening unless he completely craps the bed. But Denver, the Chargers, two teams that no one wants to believe in. I'm kind of believing in the Chargers, Joe. Talk me out of it, but I think when that offensive line is healthy, and I think it's Amari and Hampton breakout season this season. Justin Herbert played very, very well numbers-wise, despite being hurt last year. I think they have a great head coach. I think this is the Chargers' division to lose, not the Broncos. And do we see another team usurp the Chiefs, or do the Chiefs get back because Mahomes is healthy?
So listen, even though he's regressed over the past 3 years, it's the whole Tom Brady thing. The guy has 3 Super Bowls. With the game on the line, you still would say Pat Mahomes in a pressure cooker situation. If they're in the AFC Championship game, he's going to step up. Big picture, do I think they're as dominant? Well, they have Kenneth Walker. They do have Justin Fields as a backup, where I still don't know if Pat Mahomes is going to start week 1, because again, they're at a critical juncture. You have an aging quarterback. He's coming off an ACL. Do you rush him back? Because now you're in a situation where Joe Burrow was in the same thing last year, coming off an injury, and you're like, is he going to start week 1? And he wasn't really crisp until like the middle part of the season. And so that is the one, I think, aspect that you have to be very critical of. But that being said, I am going to back Denver. I just believe, and look, I've watched him in college, and Bo Nix, I understand he stunk at Auburn. And again, you look at the 2 years at Oregon, he was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in college, 78, 77% completion percentage. But I don't think he gets or got enough credit for the plays that he did make last year. Even in, the win where he gets the win over Josh Allen, he breaks his ankle. It's unfortunate. But I think if Denver and he's healthy, they win that game, obviously, against Drake May in New England.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And you know what? It might have been a different Super Bowl. That, it was a rematch, obviously, Denver and Seattle, but it could have been a different outcome, because I actually think Denver could have posed a problem with that offense. They have multiple playmakers that they could utilize. They've had now additions to that offense to make them more explosive. They have a competent running game. I like the offensive line. And as healthy, I know he makes mistakes, but it's sort of like the Riverboat Gambler with Bo Nix. Bo Nix, let me ask you this. I think Bo Nix has more quality wins in this point in his career in a big spot than Justin Herbert, right? We're still waiting for Justin Herbert to answer the bell. That's not a knock on him. It's the facts. And I understand Amari and Hampton, they have the better offensive line on paper, and it's Harbaugh. But I still was very impressed, and I was down on Sean Payton. I thought he wanted a walk when they drafted Bo Nix. But the fact that he coached them up, I like what they have. I like Denver to potentially steal it from everybody else this year.
And your analysis is spot on. A lot of it's me talking myself into thinking, can Denver really do it again? But if you look at where you win football games, offensive, they get to the quarterback and they don't let their quarterback get sacked. And now they have more playmakers, and that's how you win football games. So very, very interesting division. I think we could see definitely 2, possibly 3 playoff teams coming out of that, depending on how Mahomes is. So want to pivot, obviously, to the AFC South, where I have my ultimate sleeper in the Tennessee Titans. I will take over their win total. I don't know if they have enough to win this division, but I think it's completely wide open. I was a Jacksonville believer. I want to be a huge Texans believer. I don't believe in CJ Stroud, but I think they're probably the favorite given that defense. And if Stroud is just serviceable, they should get there. But what are your thoughts on that division?
It's wide open. Again, Tennessee, and let me just say this, Tennessee made the right call by drafting Cornell Tate. I mean, you cannot take an assessment on Cam Ward and say, is he my franchise guy without A-plus weapons, right? It's the NFL, right? You need a pure number one to make an assessment on whether this guy can play in the league. They surrounded him last year with garbage wide receivers, right? If you surveyed 10,000 people, could 10,000 people of the average fan name one standout or one wide receiver outside of maybe Calvin Ridley? They might even mention Calvin Ridley, right? And he was terrible last year. But my point is, now that they have Cornell Tate and they have a rushing attack with new head coach, they can potentially step up in a couple of years. I don't know if they're going to do it this year. I still would lean to Jacksonville. I like what Liam Cohen did last year. I like how he utilized everybody. Parker Washington all of a sudden became this breakout star when they had Brian Johnson, Brian Thomas, and you're like, where did that come from? So his ability to game plan was similar to what we saw and what he did with Baker Mayfield and the rushing attack with Tampa Bay. So I will still say it's Jacksonville. But again, it wouldn't shock me if any one of these teams outside of Tennessee, because I still think they're a year away. The problem with Houston that I have, and again, it's not the defense. We know that DeMeco Ryans, he coaches them up. The problem is, I feel like DeMeco Ryans and that offensive staff sort of handcuffed CJ Stroud and that team to where, hey, we can't get out 2 ahead. We can't get out by double digits. We can't win by 20. Our defense, let's keep it close to the vest. We scored on our first possession. That's too quick for us. Like, he has that defensive mindset where, and I joke around about it, where, hey, why win games 40-20 when you could lose them 21-16? Like, he just has that stupid mindset where, yes, we know you have one of the top defensive fronts in the game, but you also have a quarterback that threw for multiple touchdowns, was rookie of the year his first year, and you don't want to let this guy cook. You have Nico Collins that when he's healthy, he's as dominant as anybody. You have, Schultz. You had multiple weapons where you can challenge defenses at every level, and you chose to run the football to keep games close, and I just don't understand that. And that is why when we're talking money, and we're talking who could I want an aggressive coach. I don't mind that you have a dominant defense, but I want an aggressive coach. Even McDonald proved that, right? Dominant defense, but he didn't handcuff Darnold or JSN, right? When they were in a playoff run, they were throwing it more times than they were running it with Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this defense, and I was a Nico Collins. I bet him to lead the league in receiving last year. Kind of a bit of a
Right.
flyer if he doesn't get hurt. I think he's right up there. But I mean, the offenses that you're talking about, Wandell Robinson too for Tennessee. I mean, that's going to be a very formidable offense. And you
Yes.
look at Jacksonville with the three-headed monster plus Brenton Strange. I mean, and the Colts, if Daniel Jones is healthy, you saw what they did. Now they bring back Alec Pierce and they lose Pittman, but I mean that offense was humming. So this will be a very, very fun division. I think outside of Houston, it might be a little bit defensive optional, but they all beat each other too. It's like the Colts can't beat the Jags can't beat it's like a big cycle, and then they all beat the Titans. So
It's the South in both
yeah,
divisions, right? I mean, here's the thing: do we think that more than one team? Do we think that two? Like you're a believer that the West gets at least two, right? Whether it be Kansas City, Denver, Kansas City, or your pick, L.A. and Denver, whatever it is. We think that there's two at least from the AFC West. Are we a believer that they could get two, maybe in the South, or it's just the divisional winner? That's
it
tough,
yeah, it's going to be tough, especially because if Tennessee is better, they're not that layup where everybody's
right?
beating them now. So they're going to pick off one of these teams, which will maybe a 10-7 kind of gets it. And if they're beating each other, if they kind of split with each other, it's going to be tough. They got two last year with the West still getting two, but that was without Cincinnati, and so we'll
You had
talk about it.
down years. You had
Exactly.
down
So
years, so we'll see.
yeah, so we'll go right to the NFC, and I actually have a big kind of. I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to be very, very underrated this year. I love the pick of Caleb Downs in there. I think he's the best overall player in the draft, and you had to take him, and he just makes that defense exponentially better. And that offense cooks when Dak is healthy, regardless of what people think about him and the reputation of the Cowboys. I still don't know if they'll get past the Eagles, but I would put money on Dallas if they get in the playoffs. I know they haven't done it, but that's a team I think that can make some noise. Is it the Eagles division to lose, or can Dallas or Washington make a run, in your opinion?
I mean, I'm a big Jaden Daniels guy. I worry about the weapons that they had. I did not like the moves that they made last year. There was no reason to get an aging Debo Samuel. I know you could say he put up some sort of numbers, but they should have went younger as opposed to the free agent aging veteran that was on his last leg in Washington. That being said, again, they have, and Chris Rodriguez to me came on last year. Again, the offensive line, they had one of the better rushing attacks. Look, do I think Washington is not going to make a playoff run? As long as Daniels is healthy, I think they could be a 9 or maybe a 10-win football team and sneak into the playoffs. But if we're talking out of this division, the NFC East, I still will back Jalen Hurts, and I'll take my guys from Georgia on the defensive side of the ball for Philly. I know they had a down year. I know that their offensive coordinator Petula was terrible. I get that. It looked like Saquon lost a step. AJ Brown is no longer there. But again, I think this team will be focused. I think they sat a little fat last year defensively, knowing how dominant they were, and some of those younger guys got a wake-up call. Again, Quinyon Mitchell and the secondary got abused a little bit. And so I think they come into this season focused. And love them or hate them, and we're not talking, here's the thing, love them or hate them, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is Pat Mahomes. I'm not saying he's Joe Burrow. I'm not saying, passing wise, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about intangibles. When the game is on the line, mental resolve. I'll still take Jalen Hurts that in a big spot will win. He'll win more times than he loses. And whether he does it with his legs or whether he does it with his arm, he will find a way to get it done. Does that mean he's going to get it done like he did last year? No, he was terrible last year for the most part. But again, how much of that was the internal situation with A.J. Brown? How much of that was the team mentality? Again, just sitting fat and knowing what it takes to be up and ready each and every year. I think Saquon bounces back. They have a dominant, skill players. I love Mekhi Lemon. I love Devontae Smith. I love what they have at the tight end position and all the tertiary wideouts that they have. I think this team could bounce back in a big way. They are 20-1 to win a Super Bowl. I mean, 20-1. We're talking how many
Yeah, that's
teams ahead of
ridiculous.
them?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be kidding me. And that's not a knock on Dallas in any aspect. I'm not knocking Dallas in any way. They have weapons. They knocked off the Eagles last year. This could be a sleeping giant because they have the dynamic duo at the wide receiver position. But it is Dallas, and we're talking about a quarterback in Jalen Hurts that played lights out in 2 Super Bowls. If he gets there, he brings his A game. And I like the Eagles when people start selling a team, like it's still the foundation is there. And that's what I like. It's not like the defense lost 7 guys. They have all these guys are young. And if they bounce back hungry, I love their odds. So again, do I know? If you're asking me right now, it's still from the divisional standpoint, it's still the Eagles to lose. But the better bet for me, and I already made it in a couple parlays, is 20-1 to win a Super Bowl for a team that last year we thought could go back to back. I like those odds for the Eagles.
Yeah, that's an insane number there. So I'll probably get down on that a little bit. And I loved your Chris Rodriguez mentioned from running back that is Kentucky, the University of Kentucky, right? With Ray Davis,
but if you saw,
Snell,
Rodriguez. If you saw him, though, he runs the same way that he did at Kentucky. He's not the fastest tool in the shed, but you give him the rock inside the 20, the kid's gonna find the end zone. I mean, it's amazing to me. Like again. You watched all last year, Washington, and you watch this team and you're like, okay, they lost Brian Robinson, right? Brian Robinson was on San Francisco. Why? And I understand Rodriguez was a little bit banged up, but you saw what he did in the first half against Miami in the game in Europe. He had like 77 yards in the first half. I mean, he was a battering ram in games. When he's healthy, he's unbelievable, but it's just amazing on how these guys and coaches utilize certain talent. It's ridiculous.
I mean, getting Kentucky running back mentions in there, you got to love that.
Archie Spinner. I'm older than you. Archie Spinner back in the day. Yeah, I mean, number 20, the guy was unbelievable. Early 2000s. Went to Detroit.
He wasn't a running back, but I remember when Andre Woodson was like the Heisman front runner for like 9 games, and he was just absolutely electric and then fell off the face of the earth. But that was the glory days of Kentucky football. So, Joe, one under that I really, really like is the Green Bay Packers. The Vikings are like a drug for me. I can't quit them. I do think Kyler is a massive step up from J.J. McCarthy. I'm curious to see how much that defense regresses. I know they have Flores, so they'll kind of always be there, but they lost a lot of talent on that defense. Are the Bears the number 1 regression candidate? Do you agree with me that Green Bay is kind of the worst in that division? I think anyone could win outside of Green Bay to me. What are your thoughts on that division?
So I'll take a slightly different approach. Again, I agree with the assessment on Green Bay. I think they have an identity problem, especially now with the offseason stuff with Josh Jacobs. I think when they acquired Josh Jacobs, I thought he was a problem for that team because LaFleur, especially in the playoff loss to Philly, seemed to go to him way too many times, right? And again, when you had Jordan Love, an emerging star, and now he's being paid $55 million, it's like, okay, are we a run-heavy team or are we going to rely on the $55 million man to potentially, throw it all over the yard and earn his paycheck? And so I think that's a problem. I think when you look at the loss to Chicago, I had Chicago in that playoff game. I was happy that they crapped the bed in that. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think they're as dominant as they were last year. But I think if we're talking unders from me, I'm going to take a shot and think it's Detroit, even under their win total again. And I love the individual talent that they have. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I love St. Brown. Jamison Williams, I love the individual talent. The problem I have is, have they missed their window? As this, we saw the defense take a major step back. We saw this team regress. They missed the playoffs. And now it's like, okay, are we? It's almost similar to what you see in Cincinnati. And so they have had success with Burrow, right? They make it to the Super Bowl. Detroit made it to the NFC Championship game against San Francisco. but they still haven't won anything, right? And so you say you have historical losing organizations, even though Cincinnati lost twice to San Francisco in the Super Bowl, right? They still haven't won anything. Neither is Detroit. So has now you're if Joe Burrow and Cincinnati don't make the playoffs this year, you're going to be like, did they? Is this? Should we break it up? If they can't win it now, what's the reason? Well, same thing now with Detroit, where okay, you have Jahmyr Gibbs, you have this dominant rushing attack last year, you still had it. Jared Goff, okay, precision wise, one of the best completion percentages, top 10 in the NFL. We have two breakout stars and Sam Laporta at the tight end position. And our defense is still, with Hutchinson when he's healthy, they're not dominant. So if we don't make it now, is that psychological now start to say, can we do it? And so I think Chicago proved to me that, hey, Caleb Williams is the real deal. He proved it. He stepped up. The mental resolve was there. He elevated everybody around him. Anybody could win this division. I'm with you on Minnesota. I love Minnesota too. I'm hoping Kyler's the answer. But for me, to sell one team, it's Detroit, because I think now their window of opportunities passed, and I'm willing to take a shot selling them now, going the other way, that maybe, Dan Campbell just loses it and that's it.
Joe, I'm sitting here hovering my finger, trying not to hit Caleb Williams for MVP, but I agree 100% that he could be. Everyone thinks they're the number one regression candidate just given the way they won games. But if you have a dude back there, maybe there's a reason why you win those kind of games. And I think it could be Luther Burden breakout central here, and Ben Johnson has some stones on him. So I don't disagree with you on the Bears.
Right? Yeah. And their rushing attack with Monangai and the two-headed beast, their offensive line gelled. They had, and everybody talked about their defense, right? Well, when they got LA in that playoff loss, their defense stepped up. I'm not saying they're a top 10 defense. What I'm saying is the pieces that they have added in the draft and in free agency now, and knowing that Caleb overcame all the obstacles and found ways to pull them out. Hey, that's almost like a Pat Mahomes type of thing. That's almost like a Brady type of thing, where you can't teach that. Caleb just has it, and either you have it or you don't. And I think he's got it, and people are selling him on that.
Joe, you got a few minutes to get in any win totals, or?
Yeah, I mean, so I would be under on Detroit. The one, okay. I'm still over on the Eagles. They're the one team, I think, from just a talent perspective, I think they could bounce back in a big way. Let me just see some of the updated lines that put out, and this is all in Jersey, Marco. So not sure.
I have DraftKings up.
All right, I got FanDuel. Let me just see a couple of win totals, and then let me just see here. Playoffs. I just want to see updated odds for a couple of things.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I think couple of win totals that I like. I believe under in the New York Giants. Okay, I'm not a believer in Harbaugh. Look, again, individually, I think they have some nice pieces. Orville Reese, what they were able to do in the draft. Scatterboo coming back, Neighbors coming back. Two huge question marks. Jackson Dart, I still think is a huge question mark. So I'm willing to sell them on their total. A team that I'm buying into, I'll buy back on Tampa Bay. Everybody looking at Atlanta, and I think Atlanta with Stefanski is the right coach. Again, I think they're, we talk about coaches, good fit, bad fit. For him, Atlanta's the perfect opportunity. But if he goes to Tua, I don't understand how they could do that. Okay, so if they go to Tua, I'm hesitant. If they go with the young kid Penix, again, I understand he's injury prone, but we're talking about upside. With a pretty good play caller in Stefanski, this is the type of coach that you wanted to have for Penix, not Tua. Tua might have punched himself out. I don't think he's the right quarterback for Atlanta with Drake London and all those weapons and Bijan. You need Stefanski to coach up Penix for 1 year. If you have that, you have a shot. But we'll see. The other one I like is how about this? You ready?
Yep.
The NFC. I'm going to go short on the Rams. How about that? I
Yep.
know front runners to win everything, but they are one injury away, Marco, from potentially, fade. Everybody was worried about Stafford last year, right? And he came through with, roses. And all of a sudden now they add Myles Garrett. They have all these weapons. Something happens to Matt Stafford early and I'm not wishing injury. I'm just saying for those that were worried last year, all of a sudden now you're not worried. That risk is still there. And I'm willing to take a shot on the under. And again, I can't bet them to win a playoff because to me, win a Super Bowl, because to me, they can only regress. Look, they start out 5-0, it's expected, right? So if they go from 5-1 or down to plus 250, I'm not chasing that, right? I'd much rather catch them in the playoffs and bet against them than I would betting a 5-1 or a plus 450 number here. I'd rather take a shot for a Super Bowl on much better odds and better teams. But,
Yeah.
So we'll see. Carolina's interesting because they have weapons, but Bryce Young still scares me. And, and you say, okay, with Ted McMillan and all the weapons that they have, they should get over their win total. And this should be now a season that they challenge for a potential, second round run into the playoffs or first round wild card. I still have concerns. I would probably like to take the under there on Carolina. And again, everybody's expecting Bryce Young, but again, he's too hot and cold for me. And I'm starting to think and have other doubts on Carolina. So, and then the only other one just from win total. So under Detroit, I told you over Philly, I'd be over Denver, over Chicago. I'll throw a couple, and I told you over Tampa Bay, and then deep shot one that I think Monken in Cleveland. Something just tells me they get over their win total. They have good pieces there. Again, I understand they lost Myles Garrett, but they don't go from 23 and a half sacks to 0. They get a guy who was rookie of the year a couple of years ago. He's going to produce somewhat, right? And what they did defensively, they had 2 plug-and-play guys, right? So that middle front is very good. And they're one of the most aggressive defenses. If Quinshon Judkins comes back healthy, right, he showed what you can. Fannin was a steal, okay? And they have Dylan Sampson. I just like what this team has. And they have Taylor Green waiting in the wings. You want to go with Deshaun Watson? Fine. You give him one start. First week. He doesn't throw for an admirable performance, Marco. Get rid of him. You don't need to see the big picture on Deshaun Watson. In his career, he hasn't thrown for a 300-yard performance in a Browns uniform. He loses that game week 1, and he throws for $170. Move on. That's it. There should be no more, window for Deshaun Watson. Ship his ass somewhere else. Cut him. Do whatever. Take the loss. But he's becoming a detriment to this team. You want to give him one start? That's fine. But then after that, it should be Shador and whoever is challenging for that roster. I personally think it could be Taylor Green, but they have pieces in place with Monken's ingenuity. They can win 7 games. I mean,
yeah, I forget who it was, Joe. It was one of the NFL draft analysts said, like, who should start in Cleveland. And I said Taylor Green in there, and people were like, you're crazy. I'm like, he's, very, very electric. It's like you saw we got out of Shador. I do think Shador should start, but like not Dylan Gabriel, not Deshaun Watson. Why not give Taylor Green a shot? And to your point, I think one of Cleveland, the Jets, the Raiders, all teams that people laugh at, one of them is going over their win total. The Jets are juiced over. Cleveland, I could see because of the playmakers that you said, especially if either of those rookie wide receivers ends up being good. That's a decent team that you're not going to want to play late. So I also think New England under 10.5 is you could kind of ship that one with they're a massive regression candidate, and that schedule only gets harder. And expect them to win 11 games in that division or in the AFC is going to be very, very tough. So I would take under 10.5 for New England.
I like the look. I think, again, they're not going to be able to just catch teams. I understand the Vrabel perspective and them running the football and winning the turnover battle. And again, I'm still not sold on it. And I know we had a great performance down the stretch, but we're making it out like Ramondre Stevenson is like, Walter Payton. All the great backs. He's Adrian Peterson. I mean, the guy's productive, but he's not an elite running back. He's not the guy is not, it's not like when Eric Dickerson, Barry Sanders, he's not an elite guy. He produces, but that's also part of the offensive line. And again, they did a great job last year. So I'm with you on that. I will say one more that I would probably take a shot, and it's going against conventional wisdom because of how they performed last year. And Kellen Moore did a great job, but I still don't think New Orleans is legit. Tyler Shuck, he was good down the stretch, but again, I still think they're potentially overhyped for how they played down the stretch. And I think in that division, they could get knocked around a little bit. I'm still not sold on Tyler Shuck being the main guy, but we'll see. We'll see. I would take a shot under their win total in year 2.
Joe, I know you're busy, man. Thank you for the time. Let everyone know where they could find. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, find me on Twitter at GoForThe2, the number 2. I'll be doing a number of different shows and have some things in the works that I'll be finalizing soon. But any live stream I'll be on later tonight on X, you could always hit me up there.
And if you see him on X, you will see his bench press and his form, and he is crushing it. So, Joe, thanks a lot, man. Have a good night.
Anytime, Marco. Love the show.
See ya. Bye.
All right, bye.
All right, cool.